Hi, fourth graders. It's Mrs. Smith here with your lesson for today. Today's lesson is about context clues. Yesterday, you should have worked in your benchmark book and read this story, Earthquakes. It is in your new benchmark book called Earth Changes, and it starts on page 4. If you haven't had a chance to read this passage or do yesterday's lesson, you're going to want to pause this video and go back a day. If you've already done yesterday's lesson and you've already read this passage, then you are in the right spot. Today, we are breaking apart some of the vocabulary that is included in this passage. The vocabulary words that we're going to look closely at today are listed here in the words column. This particular worksheet is in your week 1 benchmark packet that was included in your work pickup from yesterday. So I am on page 2 of that packet, and again, page 4 in your benchmark book. All right, so again, we are going to be talking about some of these vocabulary words and searching the passage for context clues or clues within the passage that give me an idea about what these vocabulary words could mean. Then I'm going to justify my definition by going into the actual dictionary and looking at what the true definition of these 3 words are. Okay? So we're just going to go ahead and jump in, and our first word is tectonic plates. Tectonic plates is in paragraph 2. So I'm going to search over here in paragraph 2 and find that vocabulary word. Let's see. Oh, here it is. So I'm going to go ahead and circle this. Make sure you're doing this in your book as well. Okay, so I've circled tectonic plates, and now I'm going to search for context clues. As a reminder, we've talked about context clues for the past few weeks and even when we were in the classroom, but context clues are clues within the paragraph or within the passage surrounding a word that we don't know that give us some sort of insight as to what that word means. I remind my students that you should look in the paragraph, but specifically in the sentence before, the sentence after, and the sentence that the word is included inside. So, looking at this, I see that this is in the second sentence of this paragraph. So I'm going to be sure that I read the first sentence, the second sentence, and the third sentence. Sometimes you have to read a little bit before, a little bit after that also, and you have to use your judgment. If you couldn't find any context clues in those 3 sentences I just named, you're going to want to read some more and see what you can find. So let's go ahead and give it a try. So the word I'm looking for is tectonic plates, and I'm going to look for some context clues. So an earthquake is a sudden movement or shift in the Earth's crust. Well, that gives me a definition of earthquake, but not tectonic plates. This thin outer layer is made of many interlocking pieces called tectonic plates. Wow, that sounded just like a definition, didn't it? They said this thin outer layer is made of many interlocking plate pieces called tectonic plates. This is what they are. Let's read the third sentence just to be sure. It says, these plates float on a layer of hot molten rock as they move and move as slowly as fingernails grow. Wow, that seems like more of a detail than it is a context clue. So I think the context clue that I'm looking for is this one right here. A thin outer layer, right? The thin outer layer is actually the crust. We'll highlight that part as well. And interlocking pieces, okay? So using that information that I highlighted there, let's see if we can get it to unblur a little bit. There we go. Using that information there, I'm going to go ahead and write that down. So let's write down interlocking pieces. I'm going to put it in quotation marks to cite my source. And they're really the interlocking pieces of Earth's crust, right? That should have been a capital E. Silly Mrs. Smith. There we go, Earth's crust. Okay? And I got all of that information from right here. Okay? So, my definition is really similar to the context clue, right? My definition is tectonic plates are interlocking pieces of Earth's outer layer or crust, because the outer layer of the Earth is called the crust. And I learned that right here, thin outer layer. So again, my context clues was this interlocking pieces part. I added on this part so that it made sense in my brain. And then I wrote down my own definition. I think tectonic plates are the interlocking pieces of Earth's outer layer, also known as its crust. Okay, we're going to continue with magnitude and seismograph, but I just wanted to point out to you that at the top of this page, I wrote down your job. So in this video, you're going to see me complete these two columns here. Your job when this video is over is to go to your dictionary or dictionary.com that I wrote right here and write down the dictionary definition of these three words. Okay? So moving forward, now I'm going to go search for magnitude. This gives me a clue that magnitude is in paragraph 3. So I'm going to slide this on over. And now here's paragraph 3, and I'm going to search for the answer, for the word here. Let's see, do you see it? I see, right here. So there's magnitude. I circled it, so you should circle it. And now I'm going to read the sentence that it's in and the sentence that's after it. If there was a sentence before it, I would read that also. And search for some context clues. So it says, scientists can measure the strength or magnitude of an earthquake with an instrument called a seismograph. Uh-oh. This is my next word. I'm going to circle it now so I don't forget. And then the next sentence talks about the type of seismograph. So I don't think that the definition for magnitude is going to be in this next sentence. I'm going to go back up to this sentence and read it again. It says, scientists can measure the strength or magnitude of an earthquake with an instrument called a seismograph. What context clue do you think is in this sentence for magnitude? What's a word that I could replace magnitude with that still makes sense? Typically in passages when we see them say they can measure the strength or magnitude, they're saying that this is another way to say this word. So my context clue for magnitude is strength. And so I'm going to write that right here. I'll zoom in for you. Sorry, it's crooked. Okay, so there's my context clue. And now using that, I can come up with my own definition. So what do I think magnitude is based on the fact that I know it's strength? Well, specifically the strength of what? We don't say Mrs. Smith has so much magnitude, right? We would say Mrs. Smith has so much strength, right? So when we use magnitude, what are they specifically referring to? We typically hear the word magnitude when we talk specifically about earthquakes. So I'm going to use my background knowledge and the fact that I'm reading a whole passage about earthquakes to write in my definition box that magnitude is how strong an earthquake is. All right. Again, don't forget, you need to be filling in the dictionary definitions. All right. So my last one here is seismograph, and you'll remember that I already circled that here because I heard it as I read this sentence in paragraph 3. So let's go back and read it again and see if we can come up with a context clue for seismograph. That's kind of a silly word, so what does it mean? It says scientists can measure the strength. So scientists are measuring something, right? They're measuring the strength or the magnitude of an earthquake with an instrument called a seismograph. Now, in this case, do you think a seismograph is a piano or a flute or a trombone or a saxophone? Probably not that kind of instrument, right? We don't use musical instruments to do anything with earthquakes, right? So let's keep reading and see if we can figure out what they mean by instrument. In one type of seismograph, seismic waves cause a drum to vibrate as a weighted pen records the vibrations. I'm going to highlight records the vibrations. Records the vibrations of what? Oh, an earthquake, right? We're still talking about earthquakes and some sort of instrument, right? So I think based on this information, their instrument they're talking about is more like a tool that they're using to measure and record the magnitude or how strong an earthquake is, right? So in seismograph, my context clues I'm going to pull from right here in paragraph 3. And I'm going to write down an instrument, okay? I'm also going to write down record the vibrations. And they're talking about the vibrations that happen when an earthquake happens, when things like tables and things start to rattle when there's an earthquake. They're talking about those kind of vibrations, the Earth's movement. So my definition for seismograph is an instrument that measures the strength of an earthquake. And I'm kind of combining these two. So I think a seismograph is an instrument, or instead of instrument, we could say, or measuring tool that records, that records the strength or magnitude of, I'm out of space, earthquakes. All right. So this says an instrument or measuring tool that records the strength of earthquakes. And that's my definition of a seismograph. Don't forget, even though this video is over now, you need to finish up this worksheet by going on dictionary.com or using a dictionary that you might have at home and copying down the dictionary definitions of these 3 words. Okay? Then also don't forget that you'll need to answer these questions at the bottom. If you have any questions about using context clues, using your dictionary, or answering this question, be sure you ask your classroom teacher at your next Zoom meeting. I hope this helped you, and I'll talk to you again soon.